Your loved one does not need to lose these battles and live in a position of hopelessness and frustration and demoralization for the rest of their lives. It's difficult, it's scary, it's agonizing, and so many of them try to just figure it out on their own. This is unnecessary. There's no need for a warrior who wants to learn how to win psychological self-mastery behaviors by themselves. We specifically designed the Sons of Human program for those young men who want to be in an environment of camaraderie, of encouragement, of training, of expectation in a healthy and edifying manner, so that they can gather the principles, the skills, and the ability to acquire the sexual self-mastery they've always wanted. There's no reason for them to enter the adult world feeling pathetic in these ways. They just need to discover the Sons of Helaman program.
Hi everyone, Brandon here from the Cleaner Net. You know, when I talk to people about internet safety, one of the things they commonly will tell me is that they don't need it because their children are younger, or we don't have a problem with those kind of things in our home. And that may be true, but when you get in your car, the first thing you do is you put your seatbelt on. And if you have children, I'm sure that you're putting them in a car seat and you're making sure that they're secure before you drive away. Why do you do that? Why do you drive away with your seatbelt on if the chances of you actually being in an accident are pretty small? And the truth is that there's always a chance. There's always a possibility that you could be in an accident, and you want to make sure that your children and yourself and everybody inside the car are protected if that happens. The Cleaner Net, very much like a seatbelt, is there to protect your family online. It's a preventative measure that you can put in place to make sure that your children especially aren't exposed to harmful content and things that are potentially addictive. And so that is why we need an internet filter, not because we think there's a problem, but to prevent problems in the future. Make sure you check us out at thecleanernet.com and let me help you take control of the internet.
Hi, I'm Deanna Lamson from whiteribbonweek.org. We're learning all sorts of ways that we need to protect our kids online, and it can get a little overwhelming. When are we going to talk about these things, and how? How are we going to make it comfortable and natural, and how are our kids going to enjoy it? Well, I have a great resource for parents called Power Up for Families. This is a series of 6 conversation workbooks for families. It's not a lecture. It's a very fun and engaging way to talk to your family about media. Each of the 6 issues includes 4 sections. Let's talk, let's practice, let's plan, and let's play. Talking about media safety has never been more fun. Check out whiteribbonweek.org to learn more about Power Up.
Thank you for attending our rally today. My name is Jeffrey Ford, and I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I've practiced here in St. George for many years now. I'm also a board member for the Utah Coalition Against Pornography. Our ability to hold these rallies and conferences is possible because of the many contributions by the great people of Utah. In fact, our conference today is happening as a free of charge event because of those contributions. Our ability to continue holding these type of rallies and conferences depends on the financial contributions by people like you. Before the day's over, we hope that you visit our website at utahcoalition.org and make a financial contribution if you're able. Again, thank you for attending our rally. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you're able to go home more educated, more protected, and more able to help those you love. Thanks again for your support.
It was a nightmare. I tried to get help everywhere I could. I went to several different therapists. Nobody identified the psychological abuse and the lying and the manipulation that I was experiencing, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. Also, I was a young mother. I had 3 young children under the age of 6. I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't get childcare, and finding the specific help that I needed from someone who really understood emotional and psychological abuse, as well as sexual coercion, all of the things that I was experiencing was really important, and finding it was almost impossible. Once I did find someone who was able to really help me and understood my situation, I didn't have the money to do it. When I found Betrayal Trauma Recovery, it was everything I needed. It was unlimited support every month. It was inexpensive. I didn't have to leave my home. Betrayal Trauma Recovery Group saved my life.
This message is for you moms. Just want to reassure you, there are many young men who are anxiously engaged in a good cause. There are many young men who have intense and focused daily habits that strengthen their character, their behavior, their identity, and their spirits. And there are many of these young men who once were pornography addicts. Many of these men who have become some of the most noble and great ones of the final generation once had sexual self-mastery problems when they were younger. The training is available so that they can make this transition and become the young man you've always hoped they would become in the Sons of Helaman program.
Welcome. I hope you're enjoying today's rally. I'm Dr. Jill Manning, and I've had the good fortune of being associated with UCAP for 17 years. It's hard to believe. But over that time, I've witnessed remarkable growth within the coalition and also because of the coalition. Future growth, however, depends on the support from individuals such as you and I. Even small donations make a big difference, and I know we hear that all the time, but it really is true. Will you join me today in making a donation if you are able? We greatly appreciate your help. Thank you.
If you have a loved one caught in the trap of pornography or other difficult challenges of our day, I get it. There are so many women that understand that more than you could ever expect. Mothers Who Know is a Christ-centered online forum for all women who are seeking to know how to arm and support themselves and someone that they love. Mothers Who Know can teach you how to cheerfully do many things that lie in your power and then peacefully stand still as you support the Savior's work. Come link arms with us. Don't be by yourself. We're so much stronger together. Come and discover a more peaceful, purposeful you here at Mothers Who Know.
Welcome to SAL12step.org. The whole purpose of this website is to assist and support people as they work the steps. Recovery is much more than showing up at a meeting once a week. Working 12-step is a spiritual path. Recovery is really a change of heart, demonstrated by a deep and abiding peace, as well as attitudes of honesty, humility, and accountability. These qualities are best developed as individuals work the steps by reading recovery literature, writing about their insights, attending meetings, and checking in with a sponsor on a frequent basis. SAL12step.org offers various courses and tools to help you more effectively and consistently work the steps, bringing more of the gifts of the program into every aspect of your life. We invite you to join us on this beautiful pathway of lifelong recovery, one day at a time.
Young men want to have sexual self-mastery. Young men are capable of having sexual self-mastery. The insults in our culture, United States and beyond, that young men have no choice but to be slaves to their sexual urges, etc., is an insult to the young men. We need not use shame to help them sharpen their hearts and their minds. The parts of their brains that are warriors, the parts of their brains that fight for that which is good, can be tapped into in such a way that when they come together and they are trained in correct principles, as would any soldier in any type of boot camp type training, they can learn to do amazing things just as the sons of Helaman did in the times of the Book of Mormon. We invite you to investigate the sons of Helaman.
Hey guys, I only have 60 seconds to tell you what you can actually do to help your kids avoid or overcome porn. You already know it's a huge problem, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But after all the talk, what do we actually do? Well, number one, get involved in your kid's digital world. Your kid's phone is not a private space. Establish that with them and check it regularly, just like you would their bedroom. Number two, ask them when was the last time they got burned by pornography. Not if, but when, because having an open dialogue about it can take away the shame and create accountability. So ask regularly. Number three, you've got to learn some healthy coping skills. Most kids turn to pornography because it's a way for them to numb or unwind. Well, so is drugs and drinking, but that still doesn't make it healthy. They need to learn positive ways to cope with life's hard emotions. That's what they learn at Life Launch Center's group counseling program. Emotional tools like mindfulness and how to build healthy human-to-human connections. Check us out online at lifelaunchcenters.com or call 833-803-3883.
Hi everyone. I'd like to thank you for your participation here at the UCAP rally. My name is Dan Gray. I am a therapist here in Salt Lake, and I'm co-founder of the LifeStar program, a program which is dedicated to helping individuals, couples, and families deal with the negative impact of pornography in their lives. UCAP has been dedicated to the same cause for many, many years. I've had the privilege of being a member of the UCAP board. I'm deeply supportive of its cause as I've watched so many individuals and families receive help and assistance over these many years. UCAP is dependent on the donations of those that are willing to help and assist as it battles these issues in our society and our community. And I would ask those of you that are able to please donate today. Any small or large contribution is very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the Rally for Hope and Healing. We'll begin today with a prayer offered by Riley Grieve.
Dear Father in heaven, Father, we're thankful that we're able to gather here today under the same cause. We pray, Father, that we may unite. We pray that we may have our hearts changed and opened, that we may perhaps notice and see some things today that will help us in our lives and that we can help those around us. We pray that people may come, whether it is physically or via the live stream, that they may hear some inspired messages for them. We also pray, Father, that the speakers may be guided, that they may know what it is that they need to tell us today. We love thee, Father. We pray that we may come closer to thee this day. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Riley. We recognize all of the different precautions that need to be taken to have this conference today, but we're really grateful that we could have all of you come in, and please continue to take your seats as you come in. And we want to recognize the over 1,200 people that are watching this via live stream. We're excited to be able to offer such a great thing with the technology that we're blessed with today. Again, welcome to the Rally for Hope and Healing. My name is Kyler Blackmore. I am representing the Latter-day Saints Student Association here at Dixie State University. The Utah Coalition Against Pornography holds annual conferences in Salt Lake City and St. George, but this year, UCAP is trying something new. They approached LDSSA to help co-host an event to focus on the students here at Dixie State University and other youth and young adults. We are grateful for the opportunity to gather today to rally together and learn how to defend ourselves against the effects of pornography. We are excited to be here and thank everyone for attending, and would especially like to recognize the attendance of Richard and Kristen, the President and First Lady of DSU. Before we begin, we need to thank a few groups who made this event possible. First is our sponsors. Thanks to their generous donations, we were able to offer this event for free. All of the sponsors are well known in the St. George community, and we appreciate their continued support for UCAP events amongst everything else they contribute to. This event would not have happened without the St. George UCAP Planning Committee. Thank you for all of the time and energy you've spent to create this memorable event. And having been a part of that community, I can tell that they love St. George so much, and they want to rally with all their hope and might against pornography, and I'm excited to be a part of it as well. And just a few more items to note before we are privileged to hear from our virtual keynote speaker, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland. UCAP is on social media, so please follow them to learn more about the events and resources they offer. I've followed them for about a month now, and there's some great posts on there. And then secondly, UCAP runs heavily on donations by attendees at events like this. Please consider making a donation to this great cause today. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, gave the opening keynote address at the Utah Coalition Against Pornography Conference in Salt Lake City in 2016. Attendees were touched and inspired by the wisdom and compassion of Elder Holland's message of hope regarding the problem of pornography. We look forward to hearing from him again for continued guidance.
Thank you for this opportunity to be with you in this important conference, even if my presence is only by video. Pamela Atkinson is one of my dearest friends in all the world, a woman to whom it is absolutely impossible to say no. That's what I tried to say about this talk, in as much as I've spoken to you before, but it didn't work. I have some medical conditions that leave me with my immune system pretty suppressed and vulnerable to COVID-19. That's the reason I'm not in St. George. Pamela and I determined this video approach was the best way to go under the circumstances. I'm grateful to her for her leadership in this coalition, along with everything else she does in her humane service to the poor, the homeless, and so many other marginal members of our community. Pamela, we do love you. 4 years or so ago, I spoke to the coalition, and I said then, and I now quote, "No real headway can or will be made in this battle until there is a much deeper, much broader, and frankly, much more fearful concern about the actual threat of pornography than we presently see in society in general. Society must see this evil like the epidemic it is, with literal rather than metaphorical intent. We do need to see this like avian flu, diphtheria, or polio. In this moral plagues, continuing my quote, if this moral plague could catch our imagination the way a medical epidemic does, we would be calling out every available member of the healthcare industry, every doctor and nurse and technician and orderly. We would have the attention of every father and mother, every grandparent and aunt and uncle, asking what they could do. We would see educators and businessmen, lawyers and scientists, PTA organizations and welfare agencies lining up to send out flyers, to flood the airwaves, to give immunization shots at the local grocery store, and put Uncle Sam Wants You posters in the post office, and to have night wardens with little tin helmets watching for danger the way Winston Churchill's Londoners did during the Blitz of World War II. Yes, this ought to be seen like a public health crisis, like an infectious, fatal epidemic, like a moral plague on the body politic that is maiming the lives of our citizens. Frankly, continuing the quote, until the sirens of a public health war sound, I fear we will be wholly unsuccessful in this fight against the germ invasion sweeping across our homeland. Well, end of quote. I guess we'd better be careful what metaphors we use, because we've been given such a plague. And I'm sorry if my talk 4 years ago had anything to do with causing it, because it is so current. Let's note some striking similarities between pornography and COVID-19. An interesting first comparison might be how COVID-19 and pornography spread among populations. As we know, the coronavirus spreads through small atomized droplets in the air. These small particles are imperceptible, being 1,000 times smaller than a grain of sand. Those who are infected do not initially recognize the danger. It takes several days before the infected person realizes he or she actually has the disease. And furthermore, they may be absolutely innocent victims who may or may not have taken appropriate precautions against this seemingly ubiquitous aggressor. This sounds eerily like the infection of pornography. Exposure begins through small, simple, visual droplets, about which even the victim may not fully appreciate the danger. As with COVID-19, family and friends are almost always oblivious to the threat coming to their loved one. And sadly, the little pornographic germs are everywhere. Television, movies, checkout counters, cell phones, and iPads. The exposure goes on and on and on. Professionals counsel us that very simple means can protect us against COVID-19, like washing your hands often, using a sanitizer, wearing a mask, and social distancing. But pornography does not know how to be clean or to be masked or to keep any distance at all. And in some ways, pornography addiction, or the threat of it, is worse than an infectious disease. If you think a mask looks silly over your mouth, try putting it over your eyes and your ears. Soon, we hope, some form of inoculation will provide protection against COVID-19. Unfortunately, I am not aware of any wonder drug coming to counter pornography. So we must conquer it another way. Let's keep talking, and let me tell you more than you want to know about these two plagues. Once in your body, COVID-19 has protein sequences that form spikes on its surface. Each spike contains 3 elements that help the virus invade your system by accessing the ACE2 receptors of your cells. After attaching and further conforming to your cells, the virus deposits its genetic material inside the cell and quickly then replicates itself. As a result, the cell bursts. Interestingly, like COVID-19's sticky spikes, pornography has three elements that make it a particularly contagious disease and cause a little bursting of its own. Dr. Al Cooper has identified them as accessibility, affordability, and anonymity. Due to its widespread accessibility, hard or soft porn's onslaught is constant. Its influence is always trying to access your mind. The immediate price is small to access these images. However, if these images are consumed, the tax on your life, as well as your family and friends, is certain. Although virtual reality pornography is estimated to be a $1 billion business by the year of 2025, 90% of people view free porn online, making it very affordable. And because porn is available for free on a variety of internet-enabled devices, it is available to any viewer whenever and wherever he or she wants it. Usually the darkest and most private hour and location possible, allowing it to be viewed anonymously in most cases. Well, what impact do these two plagues have on you? COVID-19's impact varies, generally having the worst impact on those over 60 and less of an impact on younger generations. Some will never know that they ever had it. Others end up with severe, painful symptoms. At its worst, they may end up on a respirator, have their blood artificially oxygenated, or even die from the disease. These victims can no longer rely on their own natural capabilities. Instead, they must live artificially to survive from day to day. Although pornography's impact can vary, no one escapes it unscathed, as some might actually with COVID-19, and it reverses its audience, attacking the young more viciously than the elderly. You may not end up on a respirator, but pornography robs one's life of time, emotion, and purpose. As experts explain, and I quote, "Pornography is neither harmless nor helpful. It is mood-altering, belief-changing, relationship-damaging, addiction-forming, socially harming, spiritually deadening, a life-crippling practice." Like COVID-19's worst victims, pornography takes what is normal and natural and makes it artificial for everyone who uses it. Because it rewires the neural pathways in your brain, to leave it will require constant monitoring of your thoughts and feelings, not unlike the greatest monitoring of the lungs or of the blood in COVID-19 patients. Normal versus artificial? Consider the following very real impact described by Dr. Judith Reisman. Pornography causes impotence and inability to function with your own sexual power. If he has to imagine a picture, if he has to imagine a scene in order to actually reach the heights of completion with this person, then he's no longer with his own power. He's been stripped. He's been hijacked. He's been emasculated. Pornography from the beginning makes your most important emotions and feelings artificial with a very real result, in this case, impotence. Although such an impact is imperceptible at the beginning, like a snowball, it rolls into an avalanche in its proportions. The avalanche that crashes into your life includes crashing into your family and friends. Let's turn to them now. COVID-19 and pornography both leave family and friends feeling powerless. They both create a form of social distancing. COVID-19's isolation is compelled by public officials. Pornography's isolation is voluntary, stemming from one's constant fear that he or she will be found out. Individuals infected by pornography will gradually withdraw from family and from friends. Unfortunately, users think that when they use it in isolation, that they can restrain the contagion, like someone in quarantine does for COVID-19. Yet this isolation only perpetuates the disease instead of isolating it. At this stage of use, pornography is close to consuming the thoughts of the victim, taking up residence in the home and in the family. Let me say something about marital love and intimacy. It's a known fact that pornography distorts the very nature of love, a key component to a full and healthy life. For a fully functioning human being, love is as important as the cells that make up your body. Of course, what we know of the latter is that viruses, like COVID-19, can hijack them. COVID-19 takes over the cells and its reproduction machinery. Relentlessly, the virus duplicates itself. Instead of building new cells, the hijacked cell creates distortions that are really actually disease. Eventually, the host cell bursts from the buildup of the viruses that have been replicated. COVID-19 is a destructive intracellular parasite. Similarly, when pornography hijacks our love and emotions unnaturally, we struggle to replicate them naturally. As the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has indicated, and I quote, "The body then is not raw biological matter, open to manipulation, but is rather inseparable from who we are. Pornography is a disordered view of the person because it is ordered toward use as of a thing rather than toward love, which pertains to persons. This is why pornography can never be justified, even within marriage." Pornography is likewise a grave sin against human dignity. Further light comes from Dr. Gail Dines. She says, "In pornography, sex is not about making love. The feelings and emotions we normally associate with such an act, connection, empathy, tenderness, caring, and affection, those are all missing. In their place are those emotions we normally associate with hate: fear, disgust, anger, loathing, and contempt. In pornography, the man makes hate, not love, to the woman, as each sex act is designed to deliver the maximum amount of degradation." Close quote. Mixing love and hate for the same person shatters our emotions into fragments. We want one part from a partner, but not the other parts. As my friend Dr. Victor L. Brown Jr. has written of this issue, fragmentation enables its users to counterfeit intimacy. If we relate to each other in fragments, at best, we miss full relationships. At worst, we manipulate and exploit others for our gratification. Sexual fragmentation can be particularly harmful because it gives powerful physiological rewards, which, though illusory, can temporarily persuade us to overlook the serious deficits in the overall relationship. Sexual fragmentation, Brother Brown continues, is particularly harmful because it's particularly deceptive. The intense human intimacy that should be enjoyed in and symbolized by sexual union is counterfeited by sensual episodes which suggest but cannot deliver acceptance, understanding, and love. Such encounters mistake the end for the means as lonely, desperate people seek a common denominator which will permit the easiest, quickest gratification. Close quote. For those involved in pornography, to give illicitly only part of that which cannot be followed with the gift of their whole heart is its own form of emotional Russian roulette. If they persist in sharing part without the whole, in pursuing satisfaction devoid of loyalty and love, giving parts and pieces and inflamed fragments only, they run the terrible risk of such spiritual, psychic damage that they may undermine both their physical intimacy and their wholehearted devotion to those who love them most. In reality, not virtually. Well, we've wallowed too much in the darkness of these two plagues facing us. I do not want to be accused, like Dante, of shouting, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Although we must be realistic about the challenges, we can face them with hope and optimism for the future. Many in this audience today have deeply personal hopes. Hope for a marriage to improve, hope for an addiction to be conquered, hope for a wayward child to come back, hope for physical and emotional pain of 100 kinds to cease. Because God does work in this world, we can hope, we should hope, even when facing the most insurmountable odds. That's what the scripture meant when Abraham was able to hope against hope. That is, he was able to believe in spite of every reason not to believe that he and Sarah could conceive a child when that seemed utterly, physically impossible. We all need to believe that what we desire in righteousness can someday, some way, somehow yet be ours. With COVID-19, we hope for a vaccine. As we've learned with flu and other vaccines, they're not always perfect. Similarly, efforts to protect yourself, your spouse, your child, a family member, or other associate from pornography, that may be successful by degrees as well. So let's not worry about perfection here. God rewards effort, and we need to applaud those who try. And we can keep trying and keep improving, and that's what life is intended to be. I don't think that is an excuse to get off the hook regarding moral obligation, but it is an honest acknowledgement about mortality and about human frailty. In confronting that frailty, we're going to need to reinvent our thoughts and take a fresh view about God, about ourselves, and about the world. And thank heavens we can do that. You will need help for the kind of painful loneliness that some suffer here today. The best help always comes from heaven. To do that, you must look forward with faith and courage and not look back too much on the past. Do not replicate the longing look of Lot's wife looking back to Sodom and Gomorrah. That leads to salty, bitter experiences. It does not matter whether you're looking back for grief, pain, desire, or some other reason. Just learn from the past, but don't wallow in it and don't live in it. Doctors have lost patience to COVID-19. As professionals, they do not allow that to stop them, but they learn from it and move forward. Their techniques improve. They've looked at the impact of compressors on the lungs, and they've asked whether oxygenating the blood through a machine is better. They've looked at the effect of putting patients on their stomachs as opposed to on their backs. A close personal friend, who is a former surgeon, had such an experience of learning and moving forward from his mistakes. You'll recognize his name. Young Dr. Russell M. Nelson operated on 2 siblings at different times who suffered from serious heart complications. Despite his best efforts, he lost them both. He was ready to quit when his wife Dancel encouraged him otherwise. She explained that if he quit the medical practice, someone would have to learn what he already knew in those surgeries, which would take a long time and result in the loss of additional lives in the process. Well, part of life is coming up against obstacles such as pornography and pandemics and conquering them, destructive as they are. Some problems of our own making, and others simply happen to us. We face what we must face in either case, and we persevere. It means squaring our shoulders and stiffening our back and staying with a virtuous effort. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start from where you are and change the ending. Use your pains, your temptations, and your traumas. Harness them as a moving force to become better, to be better. Allow God-given gifts to come out in you. When you're a creator, you focus more on the positive and less on the things that are destroying or hurting you negatively. Let your pain lead you to your Heavenly Father who loves you. I am not suggesting easy answers or to be oblivious to the fact that this is a wrenching, terribly harrowing problem. I recognize many of you have been trying to help yourselves or others battle this demon for years, and that you continue to try. And so I don't mean to be superficial. As my good friend and late colleague Truman Madsen was fond of saying, nothing is more barren to one in agony than pat answers, which seem like the unfeeling evasions of a distant spectator who never felt a wound. A few years ago, a young father shared with me his story of a lifetime of pornography with a desire to help others leave the despair and darkness of that behind him. He explained, and I quote, "While fulfilling church and professional responsibilities, I masked my drug of choice, and that drug of choice was pornography, and the spiritual, mental, and emotional toll it was taking on me because of the incredible shame and guilt that I felt. Shame kept me bound to Satan. I was his slave, locked in addiction and isolation. Isolation feeds addiction. It's a vicious cycle. I concluded that the only option I had was to take my life. While I waited for the right time to end my life, the Lord placed wonderful leaders and friends in my life, and my mind became more clear and open to impressions from the Spirit, which on occasion would say to me, 'It's not too late. You are loved.' Finally, the guilt and anguish became almost unbearable until I poured out my soul to my sweet wife and my church leaders and started the long journey back. I'm so grateful I did. At the moment of reckoning, however," he continues, "I needed to choose to act with faith and place my trust in my Savior and the healing power of his atonement. The very moment I acted in faith, he caught me and cradled me. He has succored me every step of the way since." Close quote. By building a relationship with my Savior, seeking professional counseling, and group mentoring for both my wife and me, learning to accept and cope with my past emotional trauma, and putting forth continual effort, in due time, I will be blessed with complete healing. Until that time comes, I will rely upon the grace of my Savior to sustain me. If Christ can feed 5,000 people with a few fish and loaves of bread, he can surely feed me. He can say to the sick, go and bathe and you'll be clean. He can do the same for me. If he can cast out devils, he can surely cast them from me. I know this is possible because he is the greatest physician of all. Close quote. In some sense, we are all distant spectators to each other. No one of us has suffered what the other has suffered. However, I believe there is one who has suffered it all. Each person will have to counsel and pray and work through that with him. We cannot live without hope. Every one of you needs to have hope. Christ Jesus gives us that hope because in some incredible way, he has in effect been where you've been and felt what you've felt. Please remember tomorrow and all the days after that the Lord blesses those who want to improve, who accept the need for commandments and try to keep them, who cherish Christ-like virtues and strive to the best of their ability to acquire them. If you stumble in that pursuit, so does everyone. The Savior is there to help you keep going. If you fall, summon his strength and get back up. Call out like one did, "Oh Jesus, have mercy on me." He will help you repent, repair, fix whatever you have to fix, and keep you going. Soon enough, you will have the success that you seek. As you desire of me, so it shall be done unto you, the Lord has declared. Put your trust in that Spirit which leadeth to do good, yea, to do justly, to walk humbly, to judge righteously. Then whatsoever you desire of me in righteousness, you shall receive. I love that scripture. It says again and again that we're going to be blessed for our desire to do good, even as we actually strive to be so. And it reminds us that to qualify for those blessings, we must make certain we do not deny them to others. We are to deal justly, never unjustly, never unfairly. We're to walk humbly, never arrogantly, never pridefully. We're to judge righteously, never self-righteously, and never unrighteously. In conclusion, as we conquer COVID-19, and we will, may we be equally committed right now to conquering this other pandemic and free the world from the plague of pornography. May we hope for an environment free of sexual innuendo or borderline images that might infect us and our children's imaginations. Let us hope for the gift of personal dignity for every child of God, unmarred by any form of objectification of their bodies. Thank you for being foot soldiers in the war against pandemics, whether of the body or of the mind. Those are wars we must win, and we will. God bless you always.
Wow, we're grateful for that empowering and hope-giving address by Elder Jeffrey R. Holland, he really put into perspective the reality of this plague. But I know many of us here, we're all here because we know that reality. And I feel more confident after hearing that talk and more hopeful. And just one thing about it that I love so much is that God rewards effort. Next, we have the opportunity to view the new documentary from Fight the New Drug. Here to introduce the documentary is Parker Hymas. Parker is a passionate speaker. For many years, it was his dream to impact the world for good, or for the better, same thing. He found there was no better way for him to do that than to speak. Specifically, he felt strongly that he could really make an impact in the lives of young people. So he set out to get an education from Utah Valley University in speech communications. During that process, he saw the hashtag #PornKillsLove campaign on Facebook, and he decided that he wanted to become a fighter. Now he uses his passion for speaking to help raise awareness of the harmful effects of pornography through science, facts, and personal accounts. We're pleased to hear from Parker and the documentary.
Usually I walk around, but just because of COVID, I know we're sharing mics, I don't want to touch it or anything and offend anybody else. But my name is Parker, I'm with Fight the New Drug. If you haven't heard of us, we're a non-religious, non-legislative organization whose mission is simply to educate on the harmful effects of pornography using science, facts, and personal accounts. So what we seek to do is to help use science, research, and people's personal stories to help educate on how porn impacts individuals, relationships, and society as a whole. So we use different resources in order to do that, right? Sometimes we're at events like this. These are a lot less common nowadays. I haven't been to an event in actually quite a while, so this is kind of cool to be here. We use social media, we use our podcast, video formats, presentations, speeches, school assemblies, all sorts of different programs that are all designed simply to help educate people on the harmful effects of porn. And the reason that we do this is we realize that even though time has changed in the last 10 years that we've been around, and people are a little bit more comfortable talking about porn than they used to be, it is still seen partly in some ways as a taboo topic, but in other communities and in the vast majority of the world, porn is seen as normal, acceptable. No one has ever questioned whether it could be unhealthy. And so, simply put, what we're trying to do is help people to consider before consuming porn, to have the opportunity to become educated, and then to be able to make an informed decision on the topic of pornography. And that's why we take the approach that we do. We're not trying to approach it from a moral standpoint. We're not trying to approach it from a legislative standpoint. But what we are trying to do is make the science and research that's already readily available from major institutions, basically make it available and understandable for everyday people so that they can understand, make an informed decision, help to educate other people, and spread that information, as well as recount stories, whether it's a story of someone who has been impacted by pornography, someone who's struggling in their family because of pornography, someone who's a survivor of sex trafficking or non-consensual pornography. And what we're trying to do is help make these stories accessible, help use them to back up the science and research, and help people to understand how these issues impact the world around us, the communities that we live in, our families, our relationships, and us as individuals. So to do that today, normally I would talk, give you a presentation, and you'd have to listen to me for 60 minutes and you might get bored. What I've decided to do instead, based on today's format and the world that we're living in, is play our documentary series. If you haven't seen it yet, it's called Brain, Heart, World. So again, dealing with individuals, relationships, and society. It's a 3-part documentary series, each with about a 30-35 minute episode. So if you were to watch it back to back, it would be about the length of a feature film, right? About an hour and a half. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to play the first episode of that series. It's called Brain, and it's going to talk about how pornography impacts individuals. The other 2 parts are going to go on to talk about how it impacts relationships and families, and as well as how it impacts our communities and the world that we live in as a whole, connecting things like sex trafficking, how it fuels the demand for sex trafficking, and a lot of other issues. But my point is that the documentary is free, and what I would invite you to do is after today, go home, watch this with your families. I want you to know that the documentary is designed with young audiences in mind. I would say it's perfectly acceptable for anyone 12 or older. Watch it yourself, when you get home if you have younger kids. I would feel comfortable showing it to a younger audience than that. It just depends on your family. Every situation is different. But keep that in mind as you watch it. Obviously, it was designed for young audiences, but it's totally educational and informative and enjoyable for audiences of all ages. And so I'd like to play that first part of the documentary today, help us to talk about the research of how it impacts individuals and the brain. When you go home tonight, you can go to brainheartworld.org. You can view the other parts, or over the next week or month. It's free. It's always going to be available. But I encourage you to watch the rest of it as well after you leave today. After I play that first episode, I'd like to just take a moment to do a Q&A, allow people to ask questions if they have questions, and afford you some time to do that. And again, because of the format we're in, normally in a venue like this, I would have a microphone and maybe you would raise your hand, someone would run a microphone to you, you would ask the question, and then I would answer it to the audience. But just because of the format that we're in, once this is over, I'll come back up, share a couple remarks and thoughts. But at that point, what we'll do will just be a little bit different just because of COVID, so keep that in mind. But if you have questions as this plays, or things that you came to this event already with questions and you think that I might be able to help answer some of them, go ahead and write them down, think about that, and we'll have some time for Q&A afterwards. Appreciate everyone being here. It's great to be able to be with all of you. And go ahead and enjoy the first part of our documentary series, Brain, Heart, World. Thanks. Okay, awesome. Thank you all so much. I appreciate that. What did you guys think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Good info? Okay, cool. Appreciate that. I'll pass it along. There was a lot of work that went into this, so I'll pass your applause along. Thank you. So with the time that we have here, I just want to take a moment. I just want to remind you before I say anything else, you can view the rest of the documentary if you would like at another time at brainheartworld.org. So it's as easy to remember that as that, brainheartworld.org. Or you, of course, can get to it through our regular website, ftnd.org. But that short link's a little bit easier for people to remember, brainheartworld.org. With the time that we have left, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer some of them. Before we do that, I just want to remind you of a couple things before we start a Q&A, and then also offer some maybe guidance as to how we could do this during a pandemic. So first, I just want to remind you that Fight the New Drug is a non-religious and non-legislative organization. So if your questions have to do with anything religious or legislative, I'll just politely say, I'm so sorry, I'm not able to answer that question as a representative for Fight the New Drug, but I really appreciate you taking the time to ask it. Outside of that, the only other thing that I want to mention is I do not know everything about the topic of pornography, surprisingly. I might surprise some of you, but I don't know everything. So you may ask a question that I don't have an answer to right now, and if that's the case, I'll just say, I'm so sorry, I'm really not sure. Why don't you send us an email, and we'll be happy to get back to you on that and follow up with you. So with those two things in mind, if anybody does have a question that they'd like to ask in a public format right now, you're welcome to come down to the front. You can stand 6 feet apart, kind of in a line. And then what we'll do is we can't pass a microphone around to people just because of COVID. But if you have a question, I'll put my mask back on. You can ask me. I'll repeat the question for the rest of the audience and then do my best to answer it. So if there's anybody that does have a question, I'll allow some time to come down here. And if nobody has any questions, that's okay too. I'll share a couple other things with you before we wrap up. But now's the time. If you have any questions, you can feel free to come down and just kind of line up on this left-hand side of the stage, I guess your right-hand side. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'll just repeat the question into the microphone and then answer it for you. So, And I'll allow a little bit of time just so that people can get down if you do have questions. All right, sorry, I know this is kind of an awkward way to do this. There's just not a better way, but I appreciate your patience. So the first question has to do with piquing curiosity in young children. So essentially, I think what this individual is trying to ask is, how do I talk about the topic of pornography at an early age in an appropriate way without piquing curiosity and maybe accidentally leading someone to porn, right? Like a child. I think that's a super common concern. And I think it all goes back to what is the right time to talk about pornography and how to talk about it, right? Now, I can't give you an answer as to what age, right? I wish I could just give you this perfect, clear-cut answer, but I can't, because the problem is every child is different, every family is different, every family has different standards, values, beliefs. You're all going to have a different approach to this topic because you want to pass those values to the next generation, right? Like, we're the Smith family, and this is the things that we believe in, right? And that's a super common thing, and I think that's great. But here's what I can tell you. The average age of exposure to pornography is much younger than people often realize. Statistically speaking, many young people are commonly exposed to pornography around 8 or 9 years old. So I'm 26, and I was exposed to pornography at about 11. And if you don't think technology has changed in those 15 years, I just want to remind you that 15 years ago, the iPhone did not yet exist. So like substantial changes in technology, and I was still exposed at 11 years old, right? So the reason I bring that up is not to cause fear or spread panic, but to share information that I think can help you to make the decision that you feel is best for your family. And I think it all goes back to, how can I talk about this appropriately at different ages? And I promise you there is always a way to talk about the topic of porn at varying ages. For many people, that might just be something as simple as helping your children at the youngest of ages to realize that when they encounter something scary or unfamiliar, especially on technology, to just feel comfortable talking to mom and dad, that they're not going to be in trouble, that they're not going to feel shamed, but that things happen. The world that we live in is a digital world today, and sometimes things just happen. Most children's first exposure to pornography is not that they're intentionally seeking it out, right? So I hope that some of that information can help you. I know there are many resources that can help you have these conversations, even at young ages, if that's what you decide is best for your family. On our website, there's something called the Blueprint, which is designed to help you to have a conversation about porn with anyone of any age, including children. So I'd encourage you to check that out. There's also a book that I commonly often hear recommended called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and there's even a younger version of that book that are all great ways to help start this conversation. So I hope that helps address that first question. I'm going to grab the next one, and I'll be right back on the mic. All right, so the next question had to deal with some of the ways in which pornography impacts the brain. And I think that we saw in the documentary some of the ways that the brain is impacted by pornography. If you want to read more of the actual research, because that would be maybe not easier to understand at first, but would help you see a more in-depth insight, you can go to truthaboutporn.org. There we've put hundreds of peer-reviewed research studies that will help you to understand the issue more in depth. But essentially, pornography impacts the brain in a number of ways, and one of the ways is kind of like Philip Zimbardo talks about in the documentary, is we kind of lose sight of what's important, and the reason for that is it helps to, how do I say this simply? It affects the gray matter in the brain, and we notice that things that used to interest us lose interest specifically because the brain is receiving so much dopamine when it interacts with pornography that other areas of the brain start to lose interest, and when we're not using those parts of the brain, they start to recede. Now, the important thing to realize is that research also shows that the brain can heal fully, right? None of this has to be permanent. Exposure to pornography, at a young age does not mean that your brain is permanently affected for life. The brain can heal. We know that it's designed that way. The brain is able to heal and to change, just like pornography impacts the brain because of the fact that it's neuroplastic, if you remember that concept they talked about in the documentary, meaning the brain changes all the time, every day. That also means that same science proves that the brain can heal from a struggle with pornography when people start to change their habits and behaviors around healthier uses of their time. We can see those changes be reversed. So I hope that inspires hope and resiliency as people struggle with the problem of pornography, whoever you may be, right? Pornography impacts us regardless of any diversifying factor. I want that to be clear, right? It doesn't matter what your gender, political views, religious beliefs, pornography impacts all of us. And we need to realize that that's why open conversation is so healthy. So thank you for that question. I'll grab the next one, and then I'll be right back on the mic. Okay, so the next question had to deal with, is pornography specifically, I guess the term pornography addiction, is it an official diagnosis? So that's a great question that I often like to point out, and you heard them kind of talk about it in the documentary, right? They put the word addiction on the screen and they said, it's commonly argued in scientific circles, is this a real thing? Is it not? And the documentary went on to say, as far as we're concerned, we're not worried about that right now. What we're worried about is the fact that there are millions of people who are reporting what they feel like is a compulsive behavior around pornography that they cannot stop and that they need help. So regardless of what professionals want to use language-wise, we're trying to provide resources, right? And that's kind of how the doc settled that. But to further elaborate on that, the DSM is what's commonly used in the United States to help diagnose and treat different disorders within the brain, within behaviors, and things like that. Now, what's important to realize is that pornography has not yet been added officially to the DSM, but I do like to point out that the ICD-11, the newest version, which is the International Classification of Diseases, which is more broadly used globally, does include a section that talks about compulsive pornography use, which is why you'll often hear me use terminology like a struggle with pornography, a compulsive behavior with pornography, rather than a commonly used phrase like addiction. So I hope that helps to address that question. I think we have like 2 more if everybody is okay with that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the next question has to do with the part of the documentary where we talked about the connection between the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobes, and the reward system in the brain. You'll remember they talked about, it specifically kind of used the language of like, if this is what makes you like every other creature on the planet, this part of the brain is what makes you human, if you guys remember that part. And what they're talking about is the prefrontal cortex is what sets us apart because it helps us to regulate our behaviors as humans rather than just our reward system saying, I'm hungry, do whatever it takes. I need to reproduce, do whatever it takes. Whatever survival things are programmed into us naturally, right? The frontal cortex allows us to slow down the reward pathway and they're kind of like the brakes of the brain is how one of the researchers referred to it, right? It was actually a neuroscientist, but he talks about how it's kind of the brakes of the brain. It helps to slow us down, to help us think rationally, and how pornography usage, like other addictions that we've seen that are maybe a physical addiction, like a drug, we've seen through the research that pornography can, even though it's a compulsive behavior, disrupt the connection between those two and make it even harder for people to recognize and control their behavior. And the question was, does that affect other areas of our lives? To be honest, I'm not sure. I haven't looked enough into the research on that. I don't know if I could give you a good enough answer right now, but I told him that he's more than welcome to email us and we can look into that more. But what we do know is that this can disrupt this connection, which is one of the things that can help us to understand empathy for someone who's struggling with porn, right? Because not only are they struggling with pornography, but the part of their brain that's supposed to help them think through situations logically and weigh out pros and cons and think about consequences, that is also being disrupted, which is part of what makes this a complex issue. So I just want to say that, again, what we do know is the brain is neuroplastic, and just like there can be disruptions in the brain, healing can also occur because the brain is neuroplastic. It's always changing. So as we can shift our behaviors towards healthier outlets, we're able to see positive changes and healing take place inside of the brain. And then I think we have one last question, and after that I'll just share a few remarks. All right, and I'm glad that she came up with this question because this is a great thing that I would love to bring up since I had a moment to talk about compulsive behavior already and why we use that language. So what she asked was that because many of the people that were in this video talked about how they felt a need to view pornography compulsively almost daily, sometimes more than once a day, she was wondering, what about people who do feel a compulsive tendency towards pornography, like almost an uncontrollable urge, but aren't necessarily on that scale of, I struggle with it daily or multiple times a day, but they do feel a compulsive urge to it maybe twice a week or once a week or something of that nature, right? And I'm glad that she brought that up because something that is commonly, especially when we're talking about our children, as a parent, we care so much about our kids and we want the very best for them. And so it's easy to, when we find out maybe that our kids encountered pornography, to have perhaps the phrase could be like a knee-jerk reaction because we want the best for them and we care, but sometimes it can come on a little bit strong. And so I'm glad that she brought this up because something I'd like to point out is that there is a difference between what maybe some people call an addiction or a compulsive behavior and maybe something that's less frequent, like a habit or maybe they're viewing it when they have different moods in their life, right? Like with kids, we often see that sometimes a kid may have a compulsive behavior to porn. Sometimes we see that when they have a bad day, they view pornography. And I'm using kids as an example because it's so much easier to understand this way. And sometimes we see that children view it maybe after they're with their friends, right? Like there's these different situations and there's a scale. So I want people to realize that there really is a scale. There are varying uses of pornography. And just because someone has seen or uses pornography does not mean that they're at the top of that scale, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're at the bottom either. And so the approach to that can be different. And that's why I would urge you to meet with professional who can help work through these issues, perhaps a counselor, a therapist, someone who can help you get on a path. There are also supplementary resources that can help you, maybe an online program or software that can help you track your behavior and get better. There's programs like Fortify and many others. And I mention this just to help you to understand that it is important to know there is a scale and people are affected differently on that scale. And I think we have one more question. I'll be right back. Okay, and the last question has to do with what loved ones can do when they first find out about someone who struggles with porn, whether that's a partner or a child or whatever it may be. Oftentimes, she mentioned, it's easy to, because you care and you're shocked and there's all these other things you're processing yourself and you're trying to help them. How can we help? How can we respond appropriately? What can we do? And I think it really comes down to just helping to have a healthy conversation, finding what the goals are in your relationship with your child or your partner or your friend or whoever it may be, and helping them to meet those goals. The first thing is we have to realize that when it's the situation of a partner, the partner is also finding out something that may be difficult for them, right? It's likely very difficult for them. And they're trying to process through their own emotions and also provide help, and they're trying not to shame, because research shows that although guilt can be healthy, shame often compounds the issue of porn use, much like it does with other addictions. What we want to help people to understand is there are resources available. This is a question that is extremely complex, and there is a myriad of answers and support that would be very difficult for me to give in a minute or 2-minute response. So I apologize in my shortcoming in that, but what I do want you to know is we specifically have a blog on our site that I think is great for partners who have recently found out about porn use within their relationship. And they're trying to figure out what to do and what resources are available for them and where they can get help. I think that's a great place to start. I think another thing is that conversation guide I mentioned earlier, helping you to understand if you suspect that someone's struggling with porn, rather than being told and having that kind of dropped on you and you're a little less prepared. If you suspect something's happening with a child or a partner and you want to have a conversation about it, planning for that conversation can be great. Although you may be hurt and you're trying to figure out how to go through this process, taking just a little bit more time and preparing to have that conversation can help make a world of difference, especially with the life of a child who's struggling with something like this. So again, you can find that on the website at ftnd.org/blueprint. And then, of course, outside resources. I would always encourage people to meet with a professional, to seek out help. Although there are supplementary resources like our organization, oftentimes a professional is going to be one of the best places you can go for help, guidance, advice, and I hope that that helps to just touch my toe in the water of all of the answers to this question. But I want to thank all of you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the documentary. Again, you can watch the other 2 parts. They're going to focus on how porn impacts relationships, families, connections, our friends, the way we interact with other people, and then, of course, how it impacts our society, our community, the world that we live in as a whole. These are great. They're incredible resources. If you're looking for other resources, I've mentioned a lot just answering questions, but we also have a podcast. I know we're not a recovery resource. We're more of an education resource, but many people who are recovering or who have been survivor of sexual abuse, they do find help and healing through our resources in complementation with other professionals and things. So I'd encourage you to search our website, check out our podcast, look at our social media. You can find help. There is support. I know the overall message of this is for hope and healing, and that's what I tried to focus on. I hope you realize the brain can heal, relationships can heal, things can get better. And sometimes, things are hard and maybe they don't work out, but at the end of the day, healing can take place, things can get better, and there is hope. So I hope that the research helps to demonstrate that. I hope you all know that there are resources available and you're not alone in this, whatever you may be struggling with as an individual or as a family or as a community here in St. George. So thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoy the resources that are available. And if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to come and ask me if you want to ask something in private. Thank you all, and I'll turn the time over to the next individual.
Thank you, Parker. And that was a very insightful documentary. Wow. To close our rally, we are excited to hear from Colin Karchner. Colin created a popular parody Instagram account simply to poke fun at social media, and used that account to raise awareness of the harmful effects social media can have on our self-esteem and self-worth. Instead of using his large following to earn paid sponsorship dollars, he used his platform to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for hurricane victims, cancer kids, and now has become a social activist raising awareness of social media's effect on teen mental health. He travels the country speaking to kids, parents, educators, and more on the connection between social media and screen addiction, and the epidemic rise in teen anxiety, depression, and suicidality. This past year, Colin has presented to over 300,000 individuals at over 500 speaking engagements. His movement to #SaveTheKids has gained national attention, earning him a spot on Utah Valley's top 40 under 40, an audience at the Nike and Adidas headquarters, and a spot at the TED Talk stage in September 2018. Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes said that Colin is a warrior for our kids, close quote. He and his high school crush, Elizabeth, live in Pleasant Grove, Utah, with their 4 amazing unplugged kids. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. For those of you who are at home, I know you can't see this because it's being live streamed, but 15,000 people just stood up and cheered for me, so thank you. I know you couldn't see that. Thank you so much for UCAP for having me come back this year. I thought after last year, they're like, there's no way he's coming back, but I did. I told him I had one, where should I put this? I told him I had one request. I'm like, I'll do it, but only if Elder Holland opens for me. If he's not doing it, forget it. I'm not gonna do it. So thank you, Elder Holland. Are my slides working here? Let's throw those slides up here. I gotta shave. Are these working? Where are we? Oh, they're behind me. Okay, I can't see them. I'm gonna kind of step over here. Can you follow me? Are we good? If I come over here. Welcome people of George the Saint and people on the internet. My name is Colin with 2 L's because my mother loves me. And again, thank you, Elder Holland, for being willing. He called me last night. He was so nervous. He's like, Colin, I'm just really worried about going before you. I'm like, it's gonna be okay. And we were talking on the way up. In fact, he's calling me right now. Hold on. Sorry about this. What's up, man? No, you did a good job. It was good. I thought your salt joke killed it. What are you talking about? I don't think you rushed it at all, and your hair looked great. So, see you later, Jeff. All right. Welcome to this. If you're an adult and you're a parent, raise your hand. Where are my adults at? Where are your parents, grandparents? Go ahead and stand up for me real quick. Go ahead and stand up. I know your butts are fall asleep, but go ahead and stand up. If you're at home, go ahead and stand up too. I need you to raise your right hand or put up to your kidney, your heart. I need you to say, not in the air, just like somewhere on an organ here, and repeat my pledge. Ready, go, with your name. I, Colin, do solemnly swear that I will not go straight home tonight after this meeting and chuck my kid's phone into Sand Hollow or throw their iPad in a volcano. Go ahead, sit down. Thank you for doing that. When I'm done talking, there's my slides. When I'm done talking, parents, you're all gonna wanna do that. You're not gonna do that though. Don't do anything like that. Not for at least a few weeks. Please don't do this. Last time I was here speaking in Hurricane, a lady sent this to me. She's like, Colin, I went straight home after your speech and I did this. Please don't do this.
I hereby denounce the effects that social media have on my children.
Actually, just Parowan.
Their disobedience and their disrespect. Charlie.
Those are her kids' iPhones. Those were her kids' iPhones. Yeah. Yeah, round of applause for that woman, yes. All right, just keep my slides up here. Is that going to be okay? So I don't keep taco necking here. So I started a movement called Save the Kids, which was just a thing I started on Instagram. Why not? Put it where it is, right? Fight fire with fire, which has now become a big movement going all over the country sharing this message. Before COVID, I was speaking 30 to 90 times a month. After COVID, I gained 20 pounds and started podcasting. So it's not a big deal. But it's great to be here with you guys. The kids in the country call me the Black Angel of iPhone Death, which I love. It is now tattooed on my lower back in henna ink. Last time I spoke in a place like this was in Utah State. Any Aggies? Do we have Aggies here? Yeah. No one cares. It's okay. Any true Aggies? Where are my true Aggies at? There we go. That means they made out with someone on a rock freshman year. So I spoke there, and all the middle schools knew I was coming, and they're like, oh, we heard you're coming. Someone sent this to me. He's like, this meme's going around all of Logan right now. I'm like, yes, I've become an internet meme. But my own ward hates me. Some of you have heard this before because I started doing this 2.5 years ago. My ward hates me. My church hates me, which is weird because I thought we love each other. Because one day at church, I saw everyone on their phones, and I turned my phone on. I changed the name to Jesus, and I turned on AirDrop. And everyone who was on their phones, when they should be paying attention, suddenly goes, Jesus would like to send you this photo. And every phone goes away. The church attendance and participation is 107% now. But I love what I do because I get messages from kids all day like this one. I have tons of these. Colin, you came and spoke at Logan today, and I want to tell you how much you helped me. Kids, if you're a kid, raise your hand. How many of you literally were dragged to come here? Like they dragged you out of bed. Okay, come sit in the front row, and I'll stare at you the whole time. Today, I want to tell you how much you helped me. Today, I was planning on ending my life when my family went to your fireside. When I heard, my mom dragged me into the car to make me come, but when I heard when he talked about it, I realized so many things, specifically that social media has had a huge negative impact on my life. And I've decided to get rid of it for good. Thank you for what you said and for saving my life. Awkward segue. All right. So, 2020, get it? Yeah. What a year has 2020 been. Anyone else feel like the writers, whoever wrote the script, have gone insane? Hurricane Utah we had this week. Fires, earthquakes, protests, and they're like, what about murder hornets? We're like, throw it on the list. Giant 4-foot murder hornets. It's going crazy. This little tiny Cheeto dust brought this entire world to its knees. And if you want to remember the little gross thing Jeff Holland showed of the and like all that nastiness, we're like, yeah, it's fun talking to you with your mask on. I feel like I'm speaking to a bunch of creepy nurses. But it was so serious that everything stopped. And everyone together, for most of us, changed things really, really quickly, right? We started wearing masks. We started changing. No one could go anywhere. Everything shut down. Because it was such a big deal, we all decided we got to make changes. Really big changes, right? Which one of you bought all the Costco at the Walmart off the boulevard here? Jeez. 190,000 people are dead. Schools shut down, churches shut down, business shut down. Lives are impacted forever because this little Cheeto dust. But can we talk now about the real virus? And that's why we're here. The real virus affecting families in America is the Kardashians. No, not them. Did you guys know they're getting canceled this week? So the world is literally healing itself. Is this amazing? Yay! Planet Earth is healing. That's one of the biggest viruses, but bigger than that is this virus. And we've been in a pandemic for a long time. This didn't start March 15th. This pandemic's been going on for a long, long time, affecting a lot of people, killing hearts of millions, destroying countless marriages. I get messages every day from women in tears that say, gosh, this destroyed my whole family. You know, now I got to talk to my kids and say why dad's not around anymore or why we're in divorce court and destroying marriages, stealing the innocence of children. It's fueling a pandemic of sex trafficking, and we're fighting a monster here, and it's called porn. So let me share with you a little bit, and for the kids here, you know what I'm talking about. Don't play dumb, right? I go talk to schools all over the country, and let me share with you a little about what's happening with this pandemic here. Whenever I do assemblies, I hand out these note cards. I ask the kids, I say, hey, fill in the blank. One thing my parents don't know about social media is what? I'm going to put this down here, is what? And they say things like, oh, there's this, there's that, there's Snapchat, this. My parents have no idea about this stuff. Or they say, my parents are blocked, so they don't have a clue. So many times, kids in elementary school, bad stuff is easy to find. There's a ton of porn. Nudes, porn everywhere. This is happening. And what I'm seeing is that porn and watching it has become so normalized in our schools today. Let me show you some actual messages I've got from people. A message I got from a mom. She said, why does my 7th grade daughter come home after school crying because boys are watching Pornhub during lunch and all commenting on it at lunch? Why are phones still allowed at school? I got this message from a 7th grade girl. She said, oh, a boy asked me this. He said, can you just send me a pic? Come on, send me a pic of yourself. Send me a nude pic. And I said, can't you just watch porn? And he goes, oh, it's not the same. Leave me alone. Oh, you're a B. And it's become so normalized that now kids are playing theme songs of these websites at their class basketball games, and people are freaking out about it. And if you go on apps like TikTok or Likey or Snapchat or Instagram, and for the girls who know who I'm talking about and the guys there, kids are being hypersexualized at such young ages. 6, 7-year-old kids up there dancing in crop tops, throwing it back on TikTok, putting it on the internet for everyone to see. And where are these kids' parents? Right there. 47% of the internet is now pornographic consumption. 8 billion hours of porn watched a year on one site? And what is this doing? This is leading to a huge problem and a big increase on peer sexual abuse happening younger and younger. And it's happening in this community. It's happening everywhere. A message I got from a 15-year-old girl in Montana. I was sexually assaulted by a guy friend after an early morning class. He told me later he watches a lot of porn and thought I would like that. So obviously it's messing with people's heads and thinking, oh, this is what's normal, and it's so not normal. 1/4 of teens in America are now sexting, starting in age 7th grade on average. 1/4. Here's a message I got from another mom. She actually sent me the message, the Snapchat DMs from a kid. I just checked my 14-year-old son's phone, and a girl at school was trying to get his attention one morning. Why are you not replying? He said, I don't feel good. She sent him a nude pic, 14 years old. Does this make you feel better? Here's a message I got from a middle schooler at Box Elder Middle School up north. She said, Colin, you just spoke at our school a while ago. Well, skip down. When I was 13, guys here started asking me for nude pics. And I didn't want to, but I sent him anyways. Why? Because his reaction made me feel like I had a great body, but it was temporary. Within a month, I was back to hating my body. Pretty soon, another guy asked me for nudes, and another, and I kept going. Each time they all said that my body's perfect and I was so underrated, I actually started believing them. It never crossed my mind they might be using me. What they said about me made me feel so good. It was like I was addicted to their reactions. Social media has portrayed an image that brainwashed me into thinking that's exactly what I had to be. I did things I never thought I would, just so I could feel like I'd reached that goal. And I love how she says here in the middle of that first paragraph, it was ruining me, and it was all because I was trying so hard to reach this crazy image that I saw every day. Where? On Instagram. We have a child sextortion crisis in Utah. And if you don't believe me, every day, just check the news. Almost every day, there's articles with photos of people that look like us, that came from good homes, that because of their problem, struggle with viewing pornography at young ages, are then taking it to the next level, trying to extort kids on social media, trying to go through apps like Snapchat and TikTok and all the ones that our kids use. Some of these kids were really good kids growing up and never thought they'd be here, but they are. So let's talk about how drug industry works for a second, shall we? From my massive knowledge of watching several drug documentaries. Drug production, right? Okay, so for the drug industry to work, there's got to be a drug produced. So down in Colombia, right, if it's cocaine, someone's chopping a bunch of coca leaves and turning it into a paste. They're getting the drug ready. There's a ton of different drug types, right? There's ones that you can shoot up. There's ones you can swallow. There's ones you can snort. Tons of different drugs to give you that hit. Then there's got to be a drug injection device, a way to get that drug into your system, a way to access that drug. Then there's got to be a scary place to go get the drug, right? Maybe it's some dark alley or maybe behind a Chipotle somewhere. Then there's less scary place to get drugs, like a shady doctor, like Dr. Leo Spachemin from 30 Rock. But there's always got to be a consumer, someone who's putting that drug into their body. And none of this would happen. None of this could continue. The drug chain would stop if there wasn't someone to give the consumer the drug, to provide them with what they're looking for. So let's talk about one of the most addictive drugs. I'm so glad that we watched part of that documentary to see how addictive this drug is. If you compare side by side someone shooting up heroin to someone looking at porn, it's almost identical. But the porn lasts actually a little bit longer. So there's got to be production, and that's what's getting produced like crazy. 30,000 porn videos produced for every 1 to 2 actual feature films in Hollywood. And the drug types, of course, porn. And the drug injection devices, right there. Phones, iPads, Xboxes, books, doesn't matter. This is the way that the drugs are getting into our system. And then there's the very dark, scary places to find access to the drugs are the very big porn sites directly. But here's where most people are getting it. The very less scary places, the apps that mom and dad use too. Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Netflix, Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, Audible. Yep, Audible. I've had kids tell me, oh, I was listening to it on Audible. And then there's got to be a consumer, right? Why is there demand? Because there's a lot of consumers. And right now, this is our consumer. Is a kid sitting in their room, bored, looking for some attention, with a blanket over their head, looking at a screen. And none of this works if there isn't someone who's going to purchase and provide and enable. And sadly, right now, that's us. Parents, we're the ones who are providing this. We're the ones paying for the devices. And a lot of our kids know this isn't just silly dances. This isn't just TikTok where they're summoning demons from the underworld or fighting away bees, whatever you're doing on TikTok. We're handing kids devices and we're saying, here's a Playboy, but the most intense Playboy you've ever seen, don't look at it. That is how my dad taught me about pornography. He goes, Colin, there's a monster in a box under your bed. Don't look at that. And then he walked off, and I was 12, and I was like, wait, what? What does this monster look like? And I got bit. So if you're gonna give your kids a device with access to the internet or those apps I just showed you, that's the percent that are gonna see it. That's the percent they're gonna get hit. And parents, you remember, I'm an 80s kid. Do you remember how hard it was to find this stuff when you were growing up? You had to go to Vegas and look on the ground and pick up flyers. I'll tell you the story how I got bit by this snake. I was 7 years old. And there was one kid in my class who had a ponytail, and he had an older brother with a longer ponytail, and a dad with the longest ponytails. And we went to their house one day, I don't know why. And he said, hey, get on your bike. We're gonna ride our bikes up a hill. And we went up a hill, and then we went to this backwood area, and then we climbed a even sketchier tree to a sketchier tree house. And then the sketchiest brother with the longer ponytail opened up a box, and in that box was a magazine that blew my mind. And it was a JCPenney catalog. It wasn't even the good stuff. And now they can get it everywhere. Instagram, last year, was the #1 place kids found porn. One of the top, as far as social media apps. That's where they're finding it. I don't know if anyone's noticed in the last month what Instagram has done to their Discover page. Has anyone noticed what they've done in the last month? If you have Instagram, your whole Discover page has changed in the last 30 days. It is all little kids and little girls and people in bikinis dancing now. That's all it is now. Snapchat, oof. An app that was created, which when it was created, it was called Peekaboo. Then they changed it to Snapchat. And they put funny filters on there to convince parents, it's okay, it's just for funny filters, right? When in fact, it's not even, this app is horrible. Snapchat is the devil. This app was created to do this. And if Snapchat is the devil, TikTok is the great and spacious building. For those who know what I'm talking about, come dance with us. I can't wait. It is destroying people. If you have this app, kids, please chuck it in the garbage where it belongs. Oh, yeah, thank you. Throw it away. I cannot tell you parents. Well, actually, I can show you. I have an account that's private on Instagram called save.the.parents where I show parents. I accept only parents, where I show you the stuff I find on TikTok. And parents message me back, they're like, I just threw up. How is this possible? This app's rated 12+. Twitter, you can stream. You can watch full porn on Twitter. YouTube, I got 2 messages yesterday from moms. Both 12, 11-year, 12-year-old boys. Their sons who got the school-issued Chromebook down in Vegas with no filters were both looking at, quote, the most ridiculous, disgusting porn ever through YouTube. Reddit, I've had high school boys tell me. That's how I found it. Pinterest. Oh, I'm looking for ideas to pin on a board. There's porn on there too. Amazon, yes, I've had kids tell me they could just go on Amazon and search up products, and you can find stuff that can spark and trigger something. Roblox, I've seen, where kids are stumbling into rooms and Roblox games. where no one's got clothes on and bad things are happening. So understand this, that parents, the internet is anxious to show your kids porn. It's anxious. They type in one word on a Google search and Google's like, do you mean porn? Mike Lee said that these apps, they act like popular strip clubs for kids now. And from the National Center on Sex Exploitation, they said that the most dangerous neighborhood in America right now, it's not in the dark alleyways at 3 a.m., it's in your own house, in their bedroom, online. So why are kids hiring porn? I talk to the kids. Why are kids hiring porn? Just like they would go get a tool at Home Depot because they need that tool to do something for them. Why are they hiring porn? It's because it's everywhere and no one is talking about it to them. They see their friends talk about it on TikTok. They go to their friend's house and see it on iPad, and no one talks to them about it. Do we have any family or friends that are from New Zealand? Any people from New Zealand? Any Kiwis? No? So diverse in southern Utah. Oh, we got one. Thank you. New Zealand just launched this amazing PSA about pornography and why kids are going and looking and searching it out. And I've kind of clipped it a little bit here.
Hiya, I'm Sue. This is Derek. We're here because your son just looked us up online, to watch us.
Matt, darling, there's some people here to see you. So he watches you online?
Yeah, on his laptop.
iPad, PlayStation.
His phone, your phone.
Smart TV, projector.
Yeah, anyway, we usually perform for adults, but your son's just a kid. He might not know how relationships actually work. We don't even talk about consent, do we? No, we just get straight to it.
Yeah, and I'd never act like that in real life.
Nah. Hey, Maddie. You're right.
Okay, Sandra, stay calm. You know what to do here. All right, Maddie. It sounds like it's time to have a talk about the difference between what you see online and real-life relationships. No judgment.
Many young Kiwis are using porn to learn about sex.
Did you see how the mom reacted? That is how you have to react today. She didn't freak out. She didn't scream. She didn't throw his laptop in a volcano. Whew. Calm down, Sandra. You know what to do. Let's go talk about this. Now, I am so happy because when they asked me to come speak and they're like, hey, will you come talk about this issue? I said, yeah, but I'm not the expert here. I think that a lot of times we're asking the wrong people about this stuff. When I go out and travel, I have the best opportunity to sometimes meet some amazing kids. And I reached out to 3 of them and I said, hey, I'm gonna go down to St. George. You guys wanna carpool down? Would you come tell your story for a few minutes each to talk about this and how you've dealt with some of this stuff? And they came down here with me, and I'm really excited for them to each share a few minutes to talk about different blind spots, parents, that you're missing in parenting. Blind spot number 1. I hear from parents a lot, I put filters on my kid's device or on their phone, so it's fine. I put a filter on it, it's fine. They're never going to see porn. It did my job for me. It's no big deal. I met this 6-year-old kid here a few weeks ago named Smith from Kaysville, North Salt Lake, who messaged me after I spoke somewhere about where he lives, and he told me his amazing story. And I asked Smith, would you come down to St. George and just share a few minutes about your story? So please welcome to the stage, all the way from Bountiful, Smith Alley. Come here, Smith.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. I want to start out how I want to talk with the question, and that is, what is the world's most valuable connection? What's the most valuable thing in the world? What's the strongest thing in the world? And that's all connection, pure love. For a long time, I lacked connection in my life. For a long time, I didn't have that love in my life. And so I want to tell you my story. I was first exposed to pornography at around 9 years old, and it planted a seed for me that quickly became the way that I coped with feelings like boredom, stress, loneliness. And for me, it ruined every other relationship that I had. It ruined the way that I connected with my family. At an early age of 13, I'd given up. At that age of 13, I was watching porn 3 to 4 times a day. My parents and my family would tell you that I was the worst brother, the worst child, the worst son to live with. Raise your hand, parents, if you've got a child that you're struggling a little bit with, going through that teenage phase. Anybody have a kid like that? I know you all do. And so, at this time in my life where I felt no connection, I felt no love from my friends, my family. I felt like I had no one who loved me. I felt like my family didn't care, and I felt like my God had abandoned me. And so, through a series of fortunate events, my parents caught me, and I always thank the heavens that they did. I know that I would never have had the courage and the humility to tell them what I was involved in. I never would have known at that point the impact that my parents were going to have on me. My dad is an amazing example of how someone has turned their life around, and my mom was always there for me throughout my battles. I remember just recently my mom told me about nights where she'd go into her room and she said to herself, "I love my son, but I do not like that kid out there." And so, at a super young age of 14 years old, I had a choice to make. And that was either that I was going to pick myself up, that I was going to fight for my life, and that I was going to become the person who I wanted to become, or I was going to feel sorry for myself. I was going to continue in the ways that I had made a habit of. And so one night my mom came and talked to me, and she grabbed me by the face and she said, "Smith, I will never stop fighting for you, but you have to fight for yourself first." This is when I decided. This is when I decided that I was gonna fight. This is when I decided that I was going to change my life. This is when I decided that I was going to be a person who can help other people, because I know and I saw as a kid everybody at school who was struggling. My dad always jokes with me, you know, we joke around, but it's really true. He says 95% of boys are watching pornography, and the other 5%, they're lying. And so I was able to join an amazing program called Sons of Helaman, a program for boys who are struggling with pornography, and I was able to regain these tools on how I was going to reconstruct my life and how I was going to come closer to my God again, and how I was going to build myself up and be able to help people. Through all of this, through meeting with other young men who were struggling with the same things that I was, I fell in love with helping people. And this first started when I met one of my best friends, Landon. I met Landon at EFY. It's a summer camp for church youth. And the first night I was there, I decided that I was going to share my story, my struggles with pornography and social media, with the boys in my dorm. And so I told them about that, and the second night Landon came to me, someone who I'd just met 2 days before, and he said that he was struggling with a lot of the same things that I'd been struggling with. He told me that he felt horrible about himself, that he struggled daily with self-worth, and he asked me to help him lock down his phone, because as all kids do, he found ways around the restrictions that his parents put into place. They were not enough. After this, I kept helping other young men, my lacrosse team, anyone who I could talk to. I was talking to them about my experiences, my story with pornography, because I know that every single one of them were struggling. And when I decided that I was going to do my Eagle Scout project, I wanted to make it something meaningful, something that I cared about. And so I put on a fireside about pornography and the harmful effects, and over 200 people attended. I was shocked, and I fell in love with speaking, and I had plans to do a high school assembly and some other firesides, and those all got canceled due to COVID-19. And so I decided that I would quit my job at Chick-fil-A. I'd been working there for 2.5 years. I was a manager at 16 years old. And I quit my job to start a company called Protect. Protect is a company where I go and I talk to families about the harmful effects of pornography and social media, which can be very effectful coming from someone who's 16 years old. I talk to these kids that I know how they feel. I know that social media is ruining their lives, and I know how dark they feel inside. I know that every kid, every high schooler wishes that they could get off social media. They wish that they could delete Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, but they all tell me one thing. They say, I'm too scared. And so I go to families' houses and I talk to these kids, I talk to the families, and then I help parents set up parental restrictions on phones, help them know what Wi-Fi routers to use, help them know how to make sure they know what their kids are viewing on their laptops that we all are using at home school. And through this process, I met Colin, and I've been able to work with him a lot. I want to tell you why I started this business, and it's not for any reason besides I know that every family needs it. And this is why. Parents, I know that you'd like to think that your kids are not susceptible to the effects of pornography. I know that you'd like to think that your kids live in a world where they don't have to deal with this stuff. And I know that you'd like to think that your kids are the 1% who haven't been exposed to pornography. But I'll tell you right now, that's not how it is. Your kids are struggling, and you need to protect them. Pornography is a horrible thing. It'll lead people down a path of isolation. Users crave more hardcore content to get the same amount of stimulus to the brain. And so it leads down a path to eventually child pornography, prostitution, child sex slavery, and eventually jail. So if you're not yet set on what pornography leads to, there's just a few things you might want to avoid. Social media leads to comparison. There's nothing worse than being a teenager who already doesn't know who they are or who they want to be, a teenager who doesn't feel like they fit in. There's nothing worse than feeling that way and then getting on an app where you see people who you feel are perfect and then feel horrible about yourself. The bottom line is people need connection. So take a moment to get off your phone, get away from your screens, and go connect with someone. Go give somebody an 8-second hug. Because the bottom line is when you can get off your phone, when you can start spending less time on social media, on those screens, that's when you can become the person you want to be. So dream a big dream and live life bigger.
Thank you, Smith. Smith came down here earlier yesterday to where city? Hurricane? Or that's tomorrow? Richfield. To go meet with a group of people. It was just one family that, could you come talk to our kids? And then he went there and the entire neighborhood came. All 13 people who live in Richfield came. Blind spot number 2 real quick. Let's go through this quickly. Is only boys struggle with porn. Or it's a boy thing or it's a guy thing. And girls, it's not a big deal for them. I met this next person after she reached out to me, as most kids do, and said, hey, I want to show you my story. And I said, why don't you come down and share it in front of a lot of people instead? So all the way up from Bluffdale. Ashley, come on up.
All right, hey everyone, I'm Ashley and I'm so grateful to be able to come speak to you all today. I'm just going to start off with my story. I am so blessed to be able to be raised in an amazing family of 8 kids and 2 amazing parents. And I was homeschooled till 7th grade, and I was thriving. You could also call me the perfect child. I came across the concept of pornography when I was 11 years old in a book. It was a really good book about how kids found their life being sucked into pornography, but they found a way out. And me just being the little curious girl that I was intrigued by the concept of porn. And that only got worse when we moved from our comfortable place and set off a new life we were in a big remodel, and I joined a school for my first time, and of course, I was handed a smartphone. Right after that, I got social media, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and all the other things. And of course, I came across porn, and that just started my addiction. I would turn to it multiple times a day, every day for 6 years. That was really hard on me, especially with school. I couldn't do very well in school. I had to be homeschooled sometimes, but I couldn't tell anyone why. My family didn't even know. But deep inside, that was my deep secret, and I couldn't tell anyone. I was scared. So after years of living this second life, I just wanted to make a change. I was so sick of it. I kept writing notes. I wanted to talk to my parents. I wanted to talk to my bishop. I wanted to get this over with and open up about it. But of course, I was too scared. I was so blessed to come. I had an opportunity to talk to my cousin, and we both opened up finally. And together we dealt with our addictions, and I have never felt God's love so strongly in my entire life. I wish I could say that I wasn't affected by porn anymore, but that's not the case. Just being on social media and seeing all of the models every single day, that really, really hurt my body image and confidence. I was affected, and it led to my binge eating disorder because I was dieting to always look like the models I saw on my phone. That lasted for 9 months, and I am happy to say that that is over with now, and I'm in a way healthier place now. So parents, please understand that pornography addiction can happen to any child, including yours. If you get anything from what I'm trying to say, please let it be these 2 things. Number 1, don't give your kids a smartphone. As Colin Karshner wisely says, I know you don't want your kids to feel left out, and there are good reasons for a phone, but wait till it's the right time when you can monitor it. And yes, I'm saying you, not just throw on some filters and put your head in the sand. It's just such a dangerous world, and kids are so susceptible. There you go, thank you. And we're so vulnerable, and it's not worth just handing it over to them. Number 2, we need to have more connection. And we need to have more continuous conversations. I had the talk when I was 12 years old, but it was just one time. And I had questions I wanted answered. And of course, where do kids turn to? They turn to technology, they turn to their friends, which sometimes are not the best places to go. I wish that we had more conversations with my family. That really would have helped a lot. Now to the youth, please know that you are not alone. There are so many people struggling with this. I want to share a couple of my tips that really helped me get over my addiction. Number 1, there is power when you open up. Addiction is such a shameful thing, especially for girls. I'm going to go off on this tangent for a second. Girls are not... Pornography addiction is not being addressed with girls. It creates so much shame. We just are not talking about it, and I wish we would more. So open up, talk to an adult, talk to your best friend, and you'd be surprised by how much lighter you feel. Number 2, when you have an addiction, there's so much energy being put into it. You're focused so much on this life that is consuming you. And I would recommend trying to not focus on it so much. I'm sure a lot of people have heard the story about the two wolves inside of you. There's a bad wolf and there's a good wolf. And some people wonder which wolf will win. The answer is whatever wolf you feed. So if you are putting so much energy and all your life into this addiction, even if you're like just focusing so much on recovery, it can sometimes backfire. And I would recommend trying to find your real life. Turn to service. Just get out of your head. Number 3, find something bigger than you. Have a big why. And if you're religious, turn to God. He will help you. And number 4, this is just an extra tip that I found really helpful, and that is to clean up your phone, clean up your apps, unfollow people that don't make you feel good. Eliminate all of your triggers, and that will help you stay away from porn or whatever is triggering you to fall for those addictions. I just want to say that you are worth it. Your worth is not defined or altered by you viewing pornography. And this is something that we can all conquer. Go live your life. Go dance. Go play your favorite sports. Get off your phone. Like, what are you waiting for? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that awesome? Thank you, Ashley. One more blind spot, and that is that recovery, I guess we'd reverse it, is a destination. I met this last guy when he reached out to me as well. There's the one good part of social media, and he said, I got to tell you my story. It was so awesome that we found a weird place to go film his story, which I'll show you at the very end, and we'll wrap up. But please welcome my last speaker here, Luke. Come on up, Luke.
It's so great to be able to be here. I feel really blessed to be able to speak to all of you, all 15,000 of you who are watching. I wanted to briefly talk about my story. You'll see a little bit of that in a minute. But I also wanted to talk about a few mindsets that really, really helped me. I'm using a couple notes here. Pretend it's the teleprompter. It's not. There's a few questions that I had to learn to ask myself as I was focusing on recovering and overcoming from my struggle with pornography. The first question that I want to talk about is what? We have to be honest with ourselves. So much of pornography hides in lies and shame and darkness and fear, but we have to address the problem. And that problem is pornography. The next question is when? For so long, I was pushing it off. I remember being 11 years old and thinking, I'll stop when I'm 12. And then I remember being 13 and thinking, I'll stop when I'm 14. And I remember being 15 thinking, I'll stop when I'm 16. And the cycle continued. And so we have to be honest about, I'm going to begin recovery now. Because it's not going to be cold turkey. It's not going to be quick and immediate. It's a process. Recovery is not a destination, but a journey. Now I want to ask you all a question, and I want you to think about it for a few seconds. I want you to think about one person who inspires you and one person you love. And they could be the same person, but I want to give you a few seconds just to think about that. So this is important for the third question, and that is why? Why do I want to overcome? Now, many of us have an inspiration who we look up to, and often these inspirations are people who've overcome all odds, who have defeated some great villain, whether it's a fictional character or maybe it's an athlete. But every single inspiration, every single person who has done something great has a why. Now, that why may be for money, that why may be for something else, but often what we see in the great stories is that that why is for a person or for a higher power. Now, when you think about this inspiration and you think about why they're doing what they're doing, that probably inspires you to do something with your life. It's the feeling when you watch a great movie and you feel like you want to get up and go and change the world. So, for example, when I was overcoming, when I was focusing on, in the beginning, figuring out how to break free, there were several things that really, really helped me. The first was I wanted to do it for God. The atonement is everything. That is the greatest why. But more important, using the atonement and learning to use it. Now, the second was for my family, and more so my future wife. I didn't want to be suffering and struggling with this for the rest of my life. I want to be able to be free, to be able to love truly. I want to quote Nietzsche really quick, and he says, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that is the final question we need to ask ourselves. How are we going to overcome? While I was overcoming, I had a few great mentors, and I was doing a lot of study about the Hebrew versus Greek mindsets. Now, we are living in a Western society. This Western society derives its mindset, its way of thinking, from the Greek ideology, which is linear in nature. Now, the Hebrew mindset is cyclical or circular in nature. So experts and people who have studied the ancient Israelites, the ancient Hebrews, have come to realize how different their mindset is from ours. In fact, they've come to realize that ancient Israelites may have been unable to have an abstract thought. So what that means is that theirs was a mindset of doing rather than feeling. So where we might say, after I'm convinced to my satisfaction, then I will try doing something, the Hebrew mindset says, as I practice giving my will to God, I will then understand. So what is right ahead, and what is the solution to that? So to put it into perspective, Hebrew thinking doesn't just see the tree, they see the seed, the tree, and the fruit that drops to create new life. It's very much cyclical, just as the cycles of the moon or the sun or the seasons. Similarly, we have to learn not to see the mistake or the addiction or the struggle, but to see its cause, its effect, and most importantly, the way that we grow from it. Recovery is not linear. As many of us who have struggled have probably tried counting the days one by one. I've gone 2 weeks, mess up, okay, go back to 0, in the linear way of thinking. Recovery is cyclical. When we make a mistake, we don't go back to 0 because a circle has no starting point. We simply continue and learn, as Elder Holland was saying earlier. You are not the sum of your mistakes, but rather the sum of your successes. I think the most important thing is having that paradigm shift, learning from these mistakes and growing, because recovery will never be a destination we reach. It's always going to be a journey. And that's why we're here, is to learn and to grow. So I would challenge you, much like Ashley, to be vocal, to speak to those around you, because more often than not, you're going to find that almost all of your friends are struggling with the exact same thing that you are. And when we're vocal, we begin to realize the impact that we can truly have on ourselves, on those we love, and on complete strangers. So, learn from your mistakes, and we can change the world.
I'm so grateful that they were so brave to come do that. Wasn't that awesome? I'm going to skip through a few more things here. Parents, I talk to your kids every day. Well, they message me and they tell me what they're struggling with. When you find out that your kids are struggling, when you find out that they got bit by the snake, which is that device in their pocket showing them porn, please don't freak out. Please don't freak out, because all you do is tell your kids, do a better job hiding it. A message from a boy in Ogden. Colin, I'm 14. I've struggled with pornography for 2 years, and it's ruining my life. I was brainwashed on social media to think it wasn't that bad, and I hate who I am. I always feel like I'm in a cloud. I'm not as emotional. I wrote him back. I said, I'm so proud of you for telling me this. Do me a favor. Tell Dad tonight, and then tell me tomorrow what he says. Just say, Dad, I got bit, and I need your help. He wrote me back the next morning at 9:34 in the morning. He said, Colin, when I talked to my dad about it last night, he said I was gross, and he sent me to my room. Parents, starting today, when your kid finally says, I got bit, or you, like with Smith, you discover that they got bit, and they tell you, I got bit, step one has got to be this, and I love you. Thank you for being brave enough to tell me you got bit. I was waiting for you to tell me. Step two, what can we do to help? How can we help you? What should we do? How can we be there for you? Should we take away some of this action and the devices? What should we do? We in our house have something we call a no trouble bubble, where our kids know there's a chair in my wife's and my bedroom, where if they ever have a question or see something or anything happens, they hear something at school and they have questions, they just say, I need to go to the no trouble bubble. And that means it's time to talk about something, and we won't shame them. We'll listen to them with no punishment. So how do we protect our kids from this virus? Here's a couple quick tips for parents, a couple quick tips for the kids, and then we'll wrap up. Parents, stop being afraid to talk to your kids about this stuff, because they're gonna learn it somewhere, so why not learn from you and not from TikTok or YouTube? Number two, if your homes have devices or Wi-Fi, get a content filter, a router to block porn coming to the homes. I like Eero, Bark, there's a lot of good ones out there. Number three, teach your kids what to do when they encounter it, because if you protect them at your house, they might go to a friend's house or a cousin who have iPads and Chromebooks and social media, and they'll be exposed there. So teach them what to do. Next one, if you let your kids have these devices, if you're gonna buy them a snake that couldn't bite them, and when you find out they got bit, don't yell at them, just yell at yourself, right? They already feel bad. Now some tip for kids real quick, shame. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but don't label porn as bad. When you do that, your brain fixates on it as a threat, which causes obsessive thoughts and greater likelihood that it will be viewed. Number two, habit. This is a habit-based issue. So just think about changing the ritual. If it's in the morning before school, change the ritual. If it's at bedtime, change the ritual in the environment. Number three, mindfulness. This is just us trying to numb out on something. So let's figure out, what emotion are we trying to numb? And lastly, and I'm sorry that it's STD, because no one would remember if it was SDT, separate, think, and distract. Step away from what's triggering you, think about your actions you need to take, and then do something to relax or distract or be productive. So in conclusion, today is the Wild West. There is no accountability in technology in Silicon Valley. When I see apps like TikTok, Snapchat, that they say are rated 12 plus for my 12-year-old, and I see what's on there, there is no accountability. Kids are guinea pigs in this system. It is the Wild West. Listen to people like Simon, who say things like this with smart British accents.
Parents have to intervene. We have to stop giving our kids free access to social media and phones at young ages. They are not ready for it. Their minds cannot cope with the dopamine.
If you want to buy your kid a phone where they don't have any access to that stuff, go get a Gab phone. Any kids have Gab phones here? Any kids have Gab phones here? Come up afterwards and get one of my awesome Snapchat sucks stickers that put on the back of your phone. Sound good? There we go. We'll skip this one. Go get a second hug later. We could do that another time. I want to wrap up with this video. Luke, when he shared with me his story, I thought it was so powerful that I said, would you meet me in this weird, sketchy basement parking lot, and let's film it. Turn it into a poem for me, and let's film it. So we're going to watch this, and then we'll wrap up.
I remember being 11. I remember wondering if I was the hero or the villain, because heroes win and villains are addicted. Heroes defeat all the shadows villains live in. Heroes speak, but villains' thoughts are silent. That's what I thought. See, no 11-year-old should ever have to choose between their family and the pit they've been digging, or how many weeks or days or hours it's been since they last failed and gave in. No 11-year-old should ever have to wonder if their life is worth the living. That's what I thought. That was the lie that it was selling me. That every time I searched it up, I became less human, the enemy. And that lie in all its truth wasn't what the industry kept selling me. And the truth in all its lies wasn't what my addicted 11-year-old brain kept telling me. I remember being 13. I read a book one day with a scary story about scary things, about children killing children. And it got me thinking, how far do we have to fall as a society to be living in this hell? How could they ever make me kill someone that I have never met? Someone who dreams and hopes and fears like me, but has to live their life in dread because they are at the mercy of the thoughts up in my head. Yeah, it got me thinking, but not enough. I was still stuck in a fallacy. So I went into my room, locked the door, picked up my phone, and made that scary story a reality. Porn kills children. That's what they're selling. They make us think that we're the enemy when they make us the accessory, and they take our hearts in revelry. But we aren't the true enemy, it's porn. The biggest industry in the world, because its webs and slimy fingers are entangled in our norms. 1.2 million kids a year are taken and they're sold. And who helps fund it? Porn. And who helps fund that? Us. Children killing children. I remember being 15, ready to give up all I knew and what I thought was true just to escape the fear and doubt and shame that I never outgrew. I was still a kid. Every day giving my heart to an addiction that would leave me worse every time I'd start. And while it was killing me, what I didn't know is that it was killing more than my dreams and hopes and happiness and the plan God had in store. An evil centerpiece of darkness with a revolver in its pocket, and the energy I put in was a bullet chambered cock it with my fear, and the finger on the trigger wasn't mine. No, the finger is an industry set on its perfect crime, a double-sided gun with both barrels pointed at children. I remember being 17. I couldn't take it anymore. In a year, I'd be an adult wondering what my childhood was for, if not porn. It took me 9 whole years of darkness to one day reach into my pocket and feel its slimy fingers as I unlocked it. Porn. See, no other drug is clever enough to find its way into 3-year-olds' pockets, and no adult is dumb enough to calm their kids with shots of vodka, right? Well, the phones we make a part of us serve well to get that job done. Porn. I didn't realize through all those years of anxiousness and lying that my innocence and happiness weren't the only things dying. No, it's marriages and families and faith and joy, humanity, not to mention all the children trapped who just can't find a way to breathe. We're killing children with the drug that's made to own our lives and tell us we aren't living. It's our pride and our imperfect action that loads the gun that's pointed at the kids, and it's in fashion. No, no more. This ain't love, it's a placebo. And it's time for us to overcome and prove that we're the heroes. Now I'm 18, and I realize what I was missing. For the years I was addicted, I forgot that God was with me. We aren't perfect. We all have pains and sadness. But recovery is not pulling off a bandage or a scab, it's turning outward, because loneliness is just the lie we're given. 90-odd% of people who are living what we're living, and a God and friends and parents who never aren't listening. So though it hurts to overcome and it might just take a minute, I've learned that every single vice does have a virtue if you let it. There's a real connection in this world to be found through all the hardness. There's a flame of truth and love if we're all willing to just spark it. And a light that covers up our flaws and shows us through the darkness. And we're all just children, learning to love children. The hero's throne is there if we will fill it. We're just children, learning to love children. And when we love, we lose ourselves and defeat the real villain. We can save the children.
Wasn't that awesome? Good job, Luke. Very good. For the kids who are here, the hero's throne is waiting for you to fill it. I have seen the rooms that are covered in pads where the children, when they are taken away from sex trafficking, they go to these rooms for part of their therapy where they can just bang their fists on the ground and the walls and scream, where they can let it all out. And this industry is what is fueling their nightmare. And these kids need a voice. And you can be their voice. Every time you shut the laptop, you are filling that throne. Every time you turn off your phone, you are filling that throne. Every time you shut off that app, you are filling that throne. You are becoming the hero these kids need. And if that doesn't inspire you to go tell someone today on the way home, text your dad, text your bishop, text a friend, I got bit and I'm ready to be a hero for these kids. How do we save the kids? Here are my 4. These are my cry pods. And this world they're growing up in is not what I expected it to be. And we can't prepare the road for our kids. We have to prepare our kids for the road. And the road is dangerous and it's full of potholes. But that's all I care about is them. And I know you parents care so much about your kids too. So please go home and realize this world they're growing up in is not the same that we grew up in. It's a lot scarier, but it doesn't have to be something we parent out of fear. They want to be talked to. They want to be connected. They need us to be there for them. They need our eyes on them and not on our own screens. And stop giving kids smartphones. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Colin, Ashley, Smith, and Luke for those powerful remarks. Some closing remarks for tonight is we want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy day and schedules to attend this important rally. And wanted to also help each of you realize the geographic footprint that this rally has had today. With our live stream viewing, we had around or upwards to 2,000 viewers, and they all come from states and countries as Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, Michigan, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas, Virginia, Wyoming, Canada, and Mexico. And we invite all of you to join us at the next Utah Coalition Against Pornography conference that is scheduled to take place in Salt Lake on Saturday, April 24th. And our next conference that will be held in St. George is fall 2021. As this rally comes to close, we challenge you to share something you've learned, including new resources with 3 to 5 or even more people who could not join us today. The more we share our knowledge, the bigger difference we can make in our fight against pornography. And some things that I've learned is that there's so much hope as God rewards our effort, and that our brains can be healed, and that the power is in your hands, the youth in this world, the young adults, all of us. The power is in our hands to crush the industry of porn. and to be able to have hope and healing in our communities and in our homes. Thank you again for attending today, and I would now like to invite Heather Smith to have our closing prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful that we could gather here. We're grateful for the things that we've learned, and we ask that we'll have the strength and the courage to be honest and to help one another and to share our love. And we're grateful for thy love and for the atonement of Jesus Christ, that we can be healed, that we can grow, and we ask that we'll all be a part of delivering the captive, and that we'll all help and heal together. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.